Welcome to Film Recaps, the channel dedicated to providing you with the highlights of your favorite movies. In this episode, we will recap Evil Dead Rise, an American supernatural horror film written and directed by Lee Cronin. Be sure to hit the like button, subscribe to our channel, and share your thoughts in the comments below. The film starts at a lake house where a girl named Teresa is sitting by the water when she is spooked by her friend Caleb's drone. Teresa goes to check on her other friend Jessica, who has not been feeling well since they got there. Teresa checks on Jessica and sits by her side as she starts to read Wuthering Heights. Jessica begins to recite a passage from the page that Teresa is reading in an increasingly horrifying voice before falling over the bed. Teresa checks on her and tries to help, but Jessica grabs Teresa's ponytail and scalps her. Teresa stumbles over to Caleb, who sees the possessed Jessica. She grabs the drone and cuts her own face with it before tackling Caleb into the water. She throws his severed head at Teresa before rising menacingly above the water. One day earlier, a woman named Beth is at a music venue with the band she works with, taking a pregnancy test in the bathroom. She has a worried look on her face when she sees the result. Elsewhere, Beth's sister Ellie is a tattoo artist living with her 3 kids, aspiring DJ Danny, activist Bridget, and little Cassie, who has a fascination with the macabre. Bridget gets a knock at the door from a neighbor Jake, and his little brother Scott, as Jake has a crush on Bridget, but she declines his invitation to watch the Nightmare on Elm Street films. Beth arrives at the apartment to talk to Ellie, but the sisters are estranged and have had a complicated relationship with their mother. While the kids like their Auntie Beth, she hasn't spoken to Ellie in so long that she was unaware that her husband walked out on the family months ago. Ellie sends the kids to get pizza while she talks to Beth. She tells Ellie that she screwed up again and needs her help to fix things again. When the kids return from getting pizza, an earthquake strikes the apartment building, opening a hole in the parking garage. Danny goes into the hole and finds a hidden room filled with vinyl discs and a mysterious book, the Naturum Demontis Necronomicon, aka the Book of the Dead. He brings the book back to the apartment and shows Bridget, who doesn't like what he found. Danny cuts his hand, trying to open it, and his blood dripping on the book causes it to open. After Bridget leaves the room, Danny listens to one of the vinyls, and the voice of a priest speaks about the nature of the Necronomicon, reciting an unholy incantation as Danny sees terrifying images drawn in the book. Ellie is getting stuffed while going back up the elevator, and she is suddenly attacked by an unseen entity that painfully binds her with the cables and the elevator. Ellie goes back to the apartment, now possessed by the demons known as deadites. She begins throwing eggs onto a frying pan, some of which are filled with blood. Ellie starts speaking in a calm voice about cutting her kids open and climbing into them before she starts to crawl after them. She then vomits all over the floor before the real Ellie manages to speak and begs Beth to not let the demons take her children. Ellie then collapses, apparently dead. Beth gets help from Ellie's neighbors, Gabrielle and Mr. Fonda, putting Ellie to bed. Beth speaks some words of regret over her relationship with her sister until Ellie appears to spring back up, alive. She is burning up, so Beth and Danny try to put her in a bathtub filled with cold water. Ellie springs back up and tells Danny mommies with the maggots now, before she climbs to the ceiling and lets out a deafening shriek. Ellie then tries to attack her kids, taking a tattoo pen to Bridget's face and cutting her cheek before Danny knocks Ellie off. With power gone out in the building, Gabrielle and Mr. Fonda attempt to find a way out through a fire escape to get help. Beth and the kids lock deadite Ellie out of the apartment, and she proceeds to go after the neighbors. She bites Gabrielle's eye out before brutally killing Jake and Scott. Mr. Fonda attempts to shoot Ellie with his rifle, but she disarms and disembowels him. Gabrielle is still alive until Ellie rips his throat out. She then tries to break back into the apartment. Bridget's wound begins to turn black, and she starts oozing ink from every orifice in her face. She also becomes a deadite after puking up insects. Meanwhile, the deadite and Ellie tries to trick Cassie into opening the door for her, making her believe it's really her mom talking. Beth and Danny manage to keep Ellie outside. Beth finds Bridget crouched on the kitchen counter, chewing on a wine glass. She then goes after Beth, cutting her leg with a cheese grater. Bridget then goes after her siblings until she charges toward Cassie, who is holding the pointed end of one of her makeshift dolls, and she impales Bridget through the mouth, seemingly killing her. Danny then ties her up and puts her in bed to be safe. Danny comes clean to Beth about the Book of the Dead and also shows her the vinyls. As this happens, Ellie finds a way back into the apartment by climbing through the vents and implicitly killing a cat crawling in there, while Bridget starts to get up. Beth listens to the vinyls and hears the priest talking about how he had to kill his companions that got possessed, seemingly finding no way to kill them until he had to completely dismember them. Ellie then goes after Beth while Bridget attacks Danny and stabs him. The deadite senses that Beth is pregnant and almost takes the lead in killing them both until Cassie gets Ellie off Beth. He sets Bridget on fire, which works briefly, but she comes back while Danny dies. Beth then resolves to try and get Cassie and herself out of there safely. Beth and Cassie try climbing down the fire escape, but the neighbors that Ellie killed now become deadites as well. Ellie and Bridget, now joined by deadite Danny, go after them. Beth shoots Ellie's arm and leg off before she and Cassie make their way down. Bridget and Danny begin digging into Ellie's body to form some kind of spider deadite. Beth and Cassie make it to the parking garage and almost escape, but Beth's car gets stuck in a pothole. They hide as the spider deadite comes their way. They nearly run out until the deadites grab Cassie. They nearly decapitate her with a chainsaw until Beth blasts them with the gun. The deadites activate a wood chipper and try to pull Beth in, but Cassie manages to turn it off. Beth grabs the chainsaw and slices into Ellie, Bridget and Danny, forcing them into the wood chipper as Cassie turns it back on. Beth looks on in remorse as she has to kill her sister, niece, and nephew, but she throws deadite Ellie's head into the wood chipper. Cassie cries for the loss of her family, but Beth comforts her and takes her out of the building. The next day, it's revealed that Jessica lives on the floor below Ellie and the kids. She is getting ready to join Caleb and Teresa until she comes across the gory saint from the night before. The unseen entity then goes after her and makes Jessica scream.